I came up with a system to measure all these big chunks, big picture, big pieces of the puzzle. And I call it HIDDEN. It spells hidden, and that stands for hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, and nervous system. The key to the with the labs is the hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification. Um, and when you fix those things in a person who has chronic downward spiraling, stress related conditions, things they've pretty much lived themselves into. You assess it, you get this constant, oh, here's what's wrong. I haven't diagnosed anything. I'm just saying, here's what's wrong. Well, then the question is, how do you fix it? We'll answer that too.
Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who is out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, welcome to The Exploding Human. My name is Bob Nickman. My guest today is Reed Davis, and we're going to be talking about functional lab testing and his company, Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. Reed's going to be talking about the tests they run on saliva, urine, feces, and blood tests, and what can be learned about the basic root causes of many of the conditions of patients. A lot of patients that have come to Reed have been to multiple doctors over multiple years and still have some of their original conditions. And what Reed discovered after much research and running many tests is that many people have lived themselves into poor health. Reed made a decision that he would be the last practitioner that anyone would need to see. And so he became an expert in functional lab assessment. FDN, his company, is the result of more research and experience than most practitioners get in a lifetime. So let's jump in. This is Reed Davis. All right. Good morning, Reed. It's great to have you here, man. It's been a few years, folks, just as a full disclosure. It's not even disclosing that much, but Reed and I went to high school together. We both well, I'll speak for myself. I was a big pot smoker, and drinker, and party animal, and how we both got into the health, and I'm assuming you were there too, because I remember that. But yeah. I'm not gonna say anything that you don't want me to say. But it's kind of interesting how we sort of now 50 years later, 50 plus years later, we're both in health interests beyond most folks.
Beyond most folks. And yeah, thanks for that, Bob. It's been a long time. And there's nothing I'm really ashamed of,
Hell no.
We had a lot of fun, and that's what it was about back then. And we're a little more serious now with trying to help people. Yeah, it's all good. You could say anything you want.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I didn't realize back then, I didn't even think about it. I just thought I was bulletproof because I was a kid, but I didn't realize I was poisoning my body. It didn't even occur to me. I just thought I was having a great time. Did you even think about that? I didn't even cross my mind.
Not one bit. No, I just tried to see how much I could handle, actually. Like how much can you get down in one night, and let the consequences play out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was wonderful. You also, I don't know if your audience knows this, last time I saw you, you were on stage doing a comedic stand-up, and it was like one of the funniest things I'd ever seen. And I actually stole some of your jokes, and I've been using them for 45, 50 years.
Well, I consider that a gift, not a theft. So enjoy. I hope it helped you.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, I did stand up. I think I've talked about it on the show a little bit before, but 15 years. Something like that, 15 years. And then I segued into television writing. So how do you get into health, Bob? It just sort of segued from, I got sober in 1985 and started looking at other ways to, replace the thing I removed. because there was still some sort of a yearning for something bigger
Yeah.
beyond. Yeah. So and that's kind of what happened. So I started doing that stuff. And when I was ending my writing career, I went, wow, I should do a podcast on all this stuff I've been keeping for myself.
That's awesome, man. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. Yeah, my company has a podcast, FDN here. It has a podcast, but I don't host it. I just have one of my like my PR manager
Hmm.
handles the whole thing. He produces and publishes. Matter of fact, we're gonna trade favors here. We're gonna have you on our podcast.
Oh, great. All
Yeah,
right.
schedule you pretty much right away. You can tell him anything you want. Like he's an inquiring guy. His name's Evan, Detective Ev,
Hmm.
and he'll be wanting to know some secrets about Reed for sure.
Well, I don't have secrets. You don't have
Yeah,
any
I'm
either.
kidding, but unknown stuff. He's
Unknown stuff. Yeah, it was funny
yeah,
because when your PR or whatever, the podcast agent or whatever you call her, contacted me, I said,
Victoria. Yeah,
yeah, I said, I've known him since high school. She goes, oh, I had no idea. I guess you didn't know she was reaching out to me, so that's probably.
no, I didn't, but
Yeah.
she has her way of connecting people, which is
Yeah,
wonderful.
well, it's great, man. I'm happy for you because what a great thing. And now let's get into this lab thing because what I've noticed recently, uh, doing these podcasts and being interested in this field, that there's now these many companies doing these, 100+ lab tests.
Yeah,
Some of them offer advice afterwards. Some of them don't. The price range varies. The tests seem pretty extensive, certainly compared to what my conventional physician does at an
yeah,
annual physical. I mean, that's almost a joke how little they do.
yeah. Well, I started in 1999. I actually, Bob, I went into environmental law and was doing pretty good financially, but wasn't really on purpose as much as I knew my life could be. And my son Jason was going to this chiropractic wellness center in high school. He was a high school athlete, really good one. And I was just taking him to that wellness center, keeping him tuned up with chiropractic, acupuncture, massage, whatever he needed. He got 7 varsity letters in 4 different sports. You know what that means? It means his grades sucked. But
Can't do it all.
no, but I got a new career because I asked them for a job. I said, I can't believe what you guys do here is amazing. They talked a lot about innate intelligence in the body that is really what heals. No doctor's ever cured anything. It's the body heals or it doesn't. And I wanted to know more. And I left one job and went right to that one. And it made my career. It just made me the man I am today because I wanted to help those people. So I'm going to tell you about the labs and why what we run isn't your standard medicine labs because people were coming in the office and they'd already been to 2 or 3 or 5. I talked to people who'd been to 10 doctors
Yeah, yeah.
and they weren't better yet. There's something, and I figured, as a consumer advocate, that was a ripoff. And had never had any medical training, but I knew I could do better than no results. So, no, some were getting some help, of course, but um, because I got introduced to this functional lab testing, and back then we just called it alternative lab testing because it was doctors weren't doing it. There was no functional medicine back then. Now there is, and it's a good step in the right direction. It has not fully evolved, but basically I just started running labs like that I could run in a chiropractic office: saliva testing, urine testing, stool testing, and some blood work. And I learned by experience. I helped thousands of people over a 10-year period. Just let's run some labs. Run some labs. A lady comes in and uh, she uh, she was doing well with her chiropractic and massage and other things, and some nutritional counseling for me. I've been going to school for nutrition, and she asked if I worked with kids. I said, yeah, I worked with kids. I was a football coach and had kids, and um, Why? Well, because they're trying to send my kid home from school if I don't put him on Ritalin.
Ugh.
Now,
Yeah.
you and I went to school. They didn't do that when you and I were kids. If you're a bad boy, you go out in the hallway and you stand there, and the principal comes along and yells at you. You go back
Yeah.
in the classroom. That was it. So this lady, the first thing I said to her, I said, "What? They want to put your kid on drugs?" I said, "Like Ritalin?" And she says, "Yeah." I said, "Does he have a Ritalin deficiency?" And that's
Good.
the reaction I was looking for.
Good question.
She
Yeah.
she got mad at me. He
Yeah.
says, "No, no, I'm serious. I don't want to put my son on drugs." Okay, I'm sorry. I said, "No, was this like a school nurse at least, or a doctor maybe telling you?" No, this was just the teacher and the principal calling her and saying, "You need to put your son on Ritalin, or we're going to kick him out. He's so misbehaved." And she didn't want to do it. And I said, "I don't know if I can help or not. Can you help?" "I don't know. Let's run some tests and see." Now, this is again back in the day, over 20 years ago. These were the alternative tests, um, food sensitivities and chemical toxicity and stuff was just, kind of coming out back then. So we were on the cutting edge. But I ran some labs, gave her some advice, and within 3 weeks, the principal of the school called me. He tracked me down through the mom and said, "Mr. Davis, this is a different kid. He's sitting down, paying attention. He's not poking the other kids. He's not outbursting loudly, inappropriately and things like that." And the whole time I'm thinking, "Oh boy, I'm going to get every kid in the school coming to me." And then he said, "What'd you put him on?" Which
No.
just broke my heart. Yeah, it's just like he just wanted to know, what was the thing in the bottle that he could give to the other kids. So it was both a exhilarating moment. Wow, we did good, getting this kid. So what ended up, I didn't think of it at the time, but because I was disappointed. But what we put him on, what did we put him on? We put him on a better diet. We got rid of all the sugar and colored foods and all this sort of stuff, more protein, things like that. We put him on a better homework schedule. So he actually do his homework, have time. We'd like tripled his exercise, put him on a better exercise protein, better sleep, and so on, and the mom did it all herself. I just trained her what to do. I never even met by the way, this was a 9-year-old they were trying to put on a class two narcotic. Ritalin is in the same class as cocaine. Now, again, you and I, maybe we were lucky they would have drugged us too. We wouldn't have had to choose it for ourselves or whatever.
Yeah, we're we're
We
doing
would have
them.
thought it was a
We're
good
doing them to
idea.
get away from you, you
So,
folks.
so anyway, the one story after another, just like that. I have 10 stories I could. I don't want to take up all the time, but uh, these were moments in your life when you know you're doing something good, and kept me going. And so after 10 years, I started training people how to run the lab work. So I ran thousands of labs and thousands of people, and then made my own discovery. I had good coaching. I had some good coaching, some good mentorship. These lab guys were insanely intelligent and wanted to do some good, with their lab work. We could do this and we could do that. I was the guy in the clinic that said, "Okay, I'll run those labs for you and see what shakes out." And the discoveries that I made created a pattern that anyone can follow if they want to get well. If you're sick, you've been to 8 doctors, you're not better yet. Something's wrong with this picture. And the two things I thought way back 27 years ago. Number one was, why are they putting their health in someone else's hands?
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean you've been to 10 doctors? You're getting ripped off, and you need to take the bull by the horns. And well, what do I do? And they didn't know, and frankly, I didn't know either. But I knew I could figure it out. And so I said, I'm going to be the last guy you need to see. I will not be number 7 out of 14. I just want to be the last one. And with that, it was very ambitious. Um, I had a lot to learn, but I had nothing to unlearn. It was just read. You can do anything you want as long as you don't diagnose or treat a specific condition. That would be practicing medicine without a license. And so I said, okay, I can do that. I mean, I came from the law fields. I know not to cross boundaries. And I started just looking for underlying causes and conditions. And I was able to eventually explain to Mrs. Smith why she felt so lousy without just saying, here's your diagnosis and here's your treatment, like pills or whatever. And it was became a very remarkable. I only did it for our office, for my practice. Ended up being so busy I couldn't even run the office anymore, and I ended up leaving. And then I started teaching, and that was 17 years ago. So now I have a tribe of people that I've taught. You'll like this, Bob. So the first, everyone told me you should be teaching. You should be teaching. Um, a lab director calls me up and goes, "Who the hell are you?" Reed, like he says, "No, no." He goes, "Who are you that you have so much lab work, that you're doing so much lab work?
Mm.
You do more lab work than any five doctors, our best five doctors combined." So I was just putting tools to use that I thought were cool and trying to help the people in front of me. I didn't do called it FDN after a while, functional diagnostic nutrition, just a fancy word I came up with for my first workshop. So that was in 2008, and there was 19 people. I didn't even fill the 20 seats I'd reserved. 19 people, and then they wouldn't go away. They just like, well, wow, this is amazing. More and more and more. Now that the course that I created from that original workshop is 10 months. It's what took me 10 years to learn. I
Mm.
teach you in 10 months or less. It's self-paced. But and I'm not here to sell the course. I'm just saying that's what I do now is I have now 5,000 practitioners practicing FDN. It's a investigative system and it's a protocol system.
Let's talk about what the different tests are.
Okay.
Let's just pick saliva test and what you can. Let's start with that one. What can you learn? When somebody gives you saliva and you send it to a lab, what are they looking for, and what do you find? What can present itself that you go, oh, okay.
Good question. For the clinician, it's we're looking at the hormones, cortisol and DHEA, and the ratio of those is very important. Your cortisol is your stress hormone, and your DHEA is a counter regulatory. So cortisol breaks your body down. It's catabolic. It's a catabolic type of hormone, breaks you down, mostly to produce blood sugar and other stuff. DHEA is an anabolic hormone, so it builds you up. So if you're in balance, your cortisol is high because you're under stress, but your DHEA would regulate that, and you'd be balanced. But what happens is people are under so much stress from so many different avenues, whether it's mental, emotional, or psychospiritual, or physical aches and pains. I mean, I got a well-used body. I don't know how much athletic stuff you did, but I kind of ruined a bunch of my neck, back, shoulders, knees, hips, and stuff. So you got mental, emotional, psychospiritual, physical aches and pains from injuries, and then the chemical assaults we're all under, the air we breathe, what's in our water and food, and it's unbelievable the chemical stress. So all these stressors push you out of balance. They start breaking your body down. You start aging before your time. Now you can't make enough DHEA, it's dehydroepiandrosterone, to balance it out. And when your cortisol is that dominant, you're breaking down. And then the next thing to go from the same saliva test is your sex hormones. So we look at testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone, and you see, wow, those are out of balance. Now that's where the symptoms occur. People complain of, especially our clientele back then was women mostly. they're having early menopause and bad periods and infertility and all this stuff. With saliva, you get this catabolic anabolic imbalance, and then you start seeing the dominoes fall. The sex hormones go out, testosterone goes down for men and women. It's very important. Um, we also test on that test melatonin. Now, that's a hormone that helps you sleep. It regulates the circadian rhythm. That's your day, night, wake, sleep cycle. So we can look at that. And we also, and I had them add this, what else can we test with saliva? So I wanted to know what's the next domino to fall. So you got these energy problems, catabolic, your body's breaking down, your sex hormones are off, lots of symptoms around that stuff. Now your melatonin is off, and so you start having these roller coaster, napping in the day, staying up at night, lots of problems. And so then we added to that test secretory IgA. Now that won't mean much to you, but it's a measurement of your immune system. Is it overactive, like you have an infection, or is it underactive, which is basically a chronic infection? Because now it's dipped, and that's a lot off of one saliva test.
Yeah.
We also look at insulin and stuff. So we're looking at why we're not trying to diagnose or treat their symptom, which could be, oh, I'm not sleeping well. Here's a sleeping pill. Oh, my sex life isn't great. Here's some testosterone. We don't look at the test results as the problem to be adjusted with the agent. We look at the test results telling us, what's really wrong and what you need to do to fix it, which is reduce those stressors and get your immune system back online and things like that. So that's just the saliva test, but I never run it by itself. I always add other tests because, should I go on?
Yeah, I'm loving this. I'm totally
okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty fascinating, Bob. So the idea in the office was to not specialize, to just really be holistic and try to figure out as much as we can about really the lady in front of you. I call her Mrs. Smith. And we work with men too, of course, and kids, as I just told you. But the next domino to fall after you get this catabolic, your body's breaking down, you're catabolic, the sex hormones go out, your sleep hormones are off, your secretory IgA is high or low, but it's pointing the finger at something else. Oh, hey, well, how bad is this? So we also would run a urine test. And by the way, these are easy to do at home. They come in little tubes, come in a little kit. You take it home or we ship it to you and you just put your saliva in there or your urine, and things like that. There's dried urine and then there's the stool and blood, of course. But it's what I'm looking for is a constellation of healing opportunities. So we found this catabolic state. We found this sex hormones are out. We found your sleep hormones are out. Your immune system's, let's say it's underactive or overactive. Well, that's going to cause problems in the digestive system. That's when this high secretory IgA, that's the lining of your gut. That's your main immune system. They say most of your immune system's in the gut. Let's measure it. Secretory IgA. It's an immunoglobulin that hangs out in the gut that protects you from eating bad things, eating germs and stuff like that. Now that when that goes down, the bad flora in your gut, the bad bacteria, you've heard this probably 1,000 times, there's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria. You want mostly good. You need a little bit of bad just to keep the immune system active. Otherwise it will go to sleep. So you need some quote unquote bad bacteria, but mostly good. Well, in these people with now they got the body breaking down, sex hormones are off, sleep hormones are off, immune system's acting funny, and it's causing this dysbiosis. Now you got too much bad bacteria, and that good bacteria that you're short is what breaks down protein in your gut. So now you're not breaking down protein, and it just sort of cascades from there. So I could go through all the labs. I came up with a system to measure all these big chunks,
Hmm.
big picture, big pieces of the puzzle. And I call it HIDDEN. That spells hidden, and that stands for hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, and nervous system. The key to the with the labs is the hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification. Um, and when you fix those things in a person who has chronic downward spiraling, stress related conditions, things they've pretty much lived themselves into, you assess it, you get this constant, oh, here's what's wrong. I haven't diagnosed anything. I'm just saying, here's what's wrong. Well, then the question is, how do you fix it? We'll answer that too, but at least you have now a really good assessment without laying down any goofy medical diagnosis. Like everyone back then had fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, and the symptoms are foggy thinking and overweight, and your hair's falling out. This idea of HIDDEN is an amazing things I discovered over that 10-year period as a pattern in everyone with chronic stress-related downward spiraling conditions. In other words, they don't have Ebola virus. They don't have a gunshot wound. You're not going to go to your nutritionist for that. So we're excluding serious medical things, but everything else falls in our wheelhouse, our backyard.
Yeah. Well, you said something I thought was great, which is they lived themselves into the condition. So, when you think about, there's a lot of lifestyle diseases
Yeah,
and conditions. I always think of diabetes because it's a huge problem. It's like over
huge.
50% of the populace has issues in that area. Um, and that's, for the most part, something that people have,
Live
created
themselves
themselves.
into.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And of course, what comes off of that, then there's other issues. And when I think about what goes on in, the conventional medical community, which does a lot of good work in certain areas at certain times, of course. Going to your family physician and getting your physical, they don't ask any of these questions that you're bringing up. That doesn't come up. It's just not there.
because I'm an old guy. um, I'm on Medicare. And so, because you have to be when you turn
Yeah,
65, I'm
yeah.
72 now. So the idea is you go in, the first question they ask you right after they say, can we see your Medicare card? So they ask for your insurance card.
Yeah.
Your insurance card. Next question they ask you is, what's your favorite pharmacy? Which pharmacy do you use? Because the staff knows if you're going in the back with the doctors or PAs or whoever it is, you're coming out with a prescription. They
Yeah.
just know that because that's how they do business. That's their model. And we want nothing to do with that, of course. We're there to teach people, if they live themselves into that problem, how to live themselves out of that problem.
Yeah.
That's the other half of the equation, right?
Well, you're also encouraged to take medications. They
Oh yeah.
keep and they keep shifting the numbers to get you on. Well, I always think, because of my age, I always hear about cholesterol. You need to get on some cholesterol medication, and it's like there's no education about what it is, what the balance should be, what the numbers, which who the fuck knows. Those ranges are they don't mean anything. Uh,
Yeah.
and they don't really want to they lower the numbers to get more people on Lipitor or whatever the stuff is called.
Yeah.
I don't have any sort of confidence in that, over because there's no overall holistic kind of picture to any of that stuff. Now I'll be 72 in a couple months,
Hmm.
and I take zero pharmaceuticals. I don't have any that in my
Yeah. That's
quiver.
fantastic.
Yeah, which kind of blows me away, and it kind of blows them away when I, do my annual physical. Has anything changed? Are you on anything? Then they always ask me, have I fallen or am I depressed?
Yeah. Right. Is anyone being mean to you? I love that one. So no,
Well,
but you hit it on the head, Bob. The one time I was in they take your vitals, they do your blood pressure and your weight and stuff like that, and the lady's got her notepad. She says, "What medications are you on?" And I said, "Well, I'm not on any medications." She goes, "You aren't? Well, well, why not? What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with you?
I said, well, nothing. That's the whole point. Wasn't it? But you're saying like you've experienced that where they, yeah, again, let's see your insurance card. What's your favorite pharmacy? And in the back, if you're not on a medication, they think something's wrong with you.
Well, you say, they take your weight, which that's easy to do. It's not, that's not even an issue. But they don't even take blood pressure correctly. I've gone into the doctor, it's like, come on in, right? So now you're standing up and you're walking and you're going into this room and they wrap your arm with this thing and they don't use the stethoscope and the blood pressure
Right.
cuff. It's all electronic. So I've had it where it's because you've just been moving, it's slightly elevated, and they're like, "Oh, do you have a history of high blood pressure?" No, actually, I have a history of like great blood pressure. So
Mhm.
I go home and I take my blood pressure at home. I rest for 5 minutes. I have my arm up on a table. I
Yeah.
do it the way that you're supposed to do it, and it's completely like normal and great. So
Yeah.
so they're not even doing that right.
No, they just let it automatically register whatever the machine says. And I've never been happy with that either. The other thing you'll never really get out of a doctor's office is an explanation for why, something's going on. It's always just, here's the remedy. Oh, yes, we've seen this many times. This is very normal, actually. It's amazing what they'll call normal. I remember a friend of mine when she was 46, which is pretty young, being told that hysterectomies were normal. Oh, well, here, take this pill, and if it doesn't work, we'll just remove the parts, and then you'll be fine. It's totally normal for us to do that. That's not normal. It's common, but common isn't necessarily normal.
When I think about the ranges of things, they always you're in the low normal range or you're in the high normal range. Well, I'd like to be in the optimal range. I don't really want to be
That's it.
in the low
And
range. Well, like
yeah,
why are we not dealing with this now as it's heading in this one direction?
yes.
And that never
Well,
comes up. Never.
well, people aren't seeing the same doctor for very long these days, and so no one's tracking the subtle changes that happen over here. Take blood sugar. If you'd have been testing it regularly and tracking it, you could see that, hey, last year it was, this level. The next year it's this level. The next year it's a little bit higher and a little bit higher. Year after year, it goes up slowly. So, you change jobs, different insurance, not the same doctor. No one's really tracking until you get up to where it's almost too high, and they'll go, hey, like it looks like your glucose, fasting glucose is a little high here. If it gets any higher, I'm gonna have to put you on
Yeah,
medication.
you're okay now.
The thing about removing body parts, we had a lady come in and she said, I had this pain down here, and they told me it was my ovaries. So they put me on some, I'll just call them ovary pills for a
Hmm.
while. And then they didn't work. They worked for a little while and then they didn't work. So they just took my ovaries out. I
Oh,
said, yeah,
oh,
geez, I'm so sorry to hear that. And she goes, but wait, she goes, I then had this pain down over here underneath my right rib cage. And they said, that's your gallbladder. And so they put me on gallbladder pills for a while. And then they just took my gallbladder out. And I'm really sick of this allopathic mentality. I said, just don't tell those doctors you get headaches.
yeah. That sounds like a pretty severe case of bad doctoring.
The idea is that if you're going to teach someone what's really wrong, here's what you've lived yourself into. It means that your symptoms aren't the problem, they're the result of the problem. And the same thing, this is really important for anyone out there that wants to do some lab work or, yeah, lab work could tell you some things. They aren't the problem either. The what's written on the paper, that's just a result of the problem. So if you have, let's say, low thyroid, well, you could easily just take a prescription for thyroid medication, or you can find out why your thyroid's low. And most practitioners in the modern system, Western medicine, aren't going to tell you. We don't know why, but here's your medication. We'll don't worry, we'll treat the paper in a sense. We'll
Yeah.
get that back up to where it is or down to where it should be with some kind of agent. That's treating the paper. So if you're thinking lab work's the key, it can be, but you don't treat the paper. You got to figure out what caused that. And it's discoverable. It's discoverable in most cases. Again, we're talking the stress related conditions, which are seem to be getting worse and worse and stuff. So what I came up with is a protocol. Because when you show Mrs. Smith, well, here's what's wrong. What do you think of that? And she goes, yeah, that's me. Like no one ever showed me this before. No one ever told me that my cortisol and DHA were out of balance, and then I'm too stressed out, and it's affecting my sex hormones and my sleep and my even affecting my immune system. And the downward spiral from there, we don't have time to get into, but it's horrible. The leaky gut and all the stuff that occurs. And but the question is always, this is exciting. Um, Now, what do I do about it? Well, you lived yourself into this. How do you live yourself out of it?
Mhm.
And there's a formula for that too. It came from me way back in the clinic. Remember, there's doctors there, and they got people coming in, and I'm getting to talk to them about their nutrition and other things. And I started asking them I see you 3 times a week coming in here. You're getting your chiropractic and your other modalities, and you get a massage every 2 weeks. How's that working for you? And I was really amazed that people were kind of hooked on it. They were, well, it helps. It helps. I'm doing pretty good. Very few miracles. Again, until I started running the lab work and getting like that little boy saved his life pretty much. Others with their asthma and their hives and things. Started asking them, what are you doing at home? You're coming in here great, and we love you coming in, and that's our business. And so, but what do you do at home? Because wouldn't it be nice if you could do things at home to reverse the damage you've done, and then you wouldn't have to come in so much and spend so much money? Now, they didn't like that at the clinic, but I didn't care. Like it's what you do at home that really matters.
Yeah.
What should I do? Took me a few years, but I came up with DRESS: diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation, so that people could get a handle on the holistic, they're called epigenetic effects. It's your environment, it's what you're eating, it's are you going to bed on time, getting up, bright and fresh and all that, and or do you lay around eating crap and expecting coming in the office is going to make a difference in your life? It's not.
Well, just the changing of what you're putting in your body food wise is an enormous difference. To me, my experience is as you get older, there's less you can do that is harmful without a bad effect pretty quickly. Like, I may have been able to eat sugar when I was young and be kind of okay, mostly okay. And then became worse when I would eat sugar. Then it hit the point where I can't do this anymore. I'm grinding my jaw, grinding my teeth. I feel bloated. I'm hyper, and then I go to sleep right
Yeah.
after that. I mean, I was going, this is fucked up. I can't. This is like kicking my ass, and it really is. I mean, the similarities between sugar and cocaine are pretty, pretty strong. I mean,
It's just as addictive. Yeah. Sugar is just as addictive. Yeah.
I mean, just eliminating that, I think, and especially the people that have an incredible sensitivity to it. I mean, mine sort of developed over time. It wasn't right away, but some people, like the kids especially, that have a sensitivity to that stuff, they're off the charts. It's like like that hyperactive kid that you were talking about.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that he just had. And if you look at, I think sometimes when you look at the now that they have pretty extensive DNA testing, you can see where the proclivities for certain things are actually in your DNA in a lot of
Yeah.
these areas, which I find really interesting. I mean, I did one of those, and I was like, even some of the behavioral stuff in my quote personality was
Yeah.
right there in the DNA. I'm like, you have,
Genetic.
yeah. I was like, another example is people that metabolize or whatever. What's the right word? I don't know. Would they get rid of heavy metals easily? Like I don't.
Detoxify.
Yeah, I mean, some people are super sensitive and they just they can't do it. It's just whatever their genetics is,
Yeah. They don't have the genes to detoxify properly. It could be
Yeah,
liver, I mean, kidney, it could be lymph system. There's lots of things, lots of moving parts. The thing about gene testing is you only do it once. They'll never change.
right.
You
Hmm.
can't pick your parents.
Yeah.
And so and your parents are just two. Then you got four grandparents.
Oh yeah.
And you have eight great grandparents. And if you go back a certain number of generations, there's 1,000 people that are contributing something to you, to your physiology, anatomy, um, and even behavior, as you mentioned. It's kind of interesting. So we don't do a lot of gene testing because you can't change them. There's no before and after
Yeah,
test.
it's good information. I think that's about it. I
It's
mean,
nice to know those propensities.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, my dad died of colon cancer, and so did his dad. So I don't need to do a gene test. I
Yeah,
probably have the genes. Actually, I did, and I do have the genes for colon cancer. So what you do is it's the epigenetics that are the key, and that's why our DRESS program. It's a very epigenetic program. It has an effect on every cell, and even to the atomic level cells, inside the cells, all the little things going on. Um, but the cells, the tissues, the organs, the entire organism, that's why what we do is very safe and it doesn't, um, contravene any medical standards. Like in other words, we're not treating disease, we're treating the person, every cell, tissue, organ, and system, because all we're using is lifestyle, diet, rest, exercise.
hmm
Reducing stress is a big one, and supplementation. We don't have to talk about that, but you can't really be super healthy without them because food doesn't have all the nutrients that we're supposed to get to be optimal. You want to be optimal? Vitamins, minerals, essential fatty acids, antioxidants, phytonutrients, trace elements. These things matter. So you take some supplements, but with the lab work, we can even guide that. So it's the lab work, HIDDEN, all those whole constellation of healing opportunities. You know what's wrong. The person goes, yeah, that's me. What do I do? DRESS, DRESS, customize everything. There's no one diet that's right for everybody.
Yeah.
Rest is more than just sleep. You have to rest your emotions and spirit, and that could be any time of day that you need it. The exercise is not the same for everybody. So all these things can be customized. I'm 72. I did jujitsu and kickboxing for years. Haven't been to a gym in 6, 7 years because I keep getting hurt. It's not the right kind of exercise for me.
Yeah.
I loved it, but I had to quit. So now I do Pilates. But
Oh, that's yeah, I do too.
and that's grueling. Believe me, that can be really intimidating for some people. But so the diet customized, rest customized, exercise customized, stress reduction is, Bob. We can spend 2 hours on the types of stress and how to manage or reduce it hopefully. And some of it's easy. If you have like just take food. Your food. You said diet, but um, diet is a two-edged sword. It can be so full of chemicals that it's stressing you. Those chemicals are stressing out your cells and tissues and organs. So stress reduction could be just eating organic, breathing clean air, get a filter in your bedroom. Reduce your screen time is huge. What about parasites, bacteria, funguses, and virus? Those are all stressful. That's just another stressor. That's just something else in the environment that we need to get our arms around. That's why the testing is so important.
Mhm.
One thing you've said 2 or 3 times is sensitivities.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It means one person can eat it, another person can't.
Yeah.
You've got it's kind of an inborn, it could be acquired sensitivity to it. And how do you think that kid that I told you about um, changed from hyperactive to
Yeah.
behaved and sort of more self-aware and conscious of his, how he was being, because he was sensitive to all the crap that was going down the pipes and the amount of screen time and all this stuff. So these sensitivities are what I love testing for, maybe the most. Getting people off foods that they're sensitive to. They have no clue. Matter of fact, they can get addicted to foods you're sensitive to
Yeah.
because they your brain produces some kind of dopamine that or something that makes you feel better. It's protecting you. So uh, they're actually like morphine almost. They're called endorphins. So if you have a sensitivity to milk, your brain might be producing uh, it's called casomorphin, which is like dope. So every time you drink milk, you actually feel a little bit good. But it's so bad for you. That's why, because it's now you're congested and you're coughing and spitting up phlegm and all this. I've seen that over and over again. Or maybe it's just creating bags under your eyes, especially kids. You see them with the
Yeah.
blue bag. I mean, I could go on and on about that. So stress reduction, diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction is a huge area. And then supplements, as I said, are pretty important. You can stimulate your immune system. You can support your adrenal glands or digestion or whatever. So it's really very scientific. It's well thought out, and it freaking works. And that's why we have 5,000 students with or graduates with and they're building their clientele and their businesses. They really are helping people.
Can we talk about insulin resistance? What,
Yeah.
first of all, what is it? And you hear about it, and people eat certain things and they can't stop eating it, and they're not satisfied, and they have to have more, and then they're still not satisfied, and there's a whole, and there's a lot of weight gain and sluggishness and brain fog that comes from that sort of vicious cycle.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there when you start mentioning appetite and that sort of stuff. But um, in a healthy person, they eat and their blood sugar goes up a little bit, hopefully not too high. Um, the rate and quality of that is expected to be in a certain range. And so you eat, you're fasting and then you're not. So we call it postprandial. And you can measure the blood sugar. Now, when it goes up high like that, you can't let it get too high. The body has to do something with that glucose or sugar. Could be fructose. There's all these changes that take place. But the pancreas produces insulin to bring it down. So insulin is a good thing
Mhm.
in the right, if it's the right reaction. There's also another hormone, um, very important in there, glucagon, which the pancreas also makes to balance it out so that your insulin doesn't drop too fast. Then you'd be hypoglycemic. You wouldn't want that. So there's a lot of control balancing mechanisms ongoing, but the job of insulin is to get the glucose into the cells where it belongs. And what can't go into the cells is going to be kind of rejected. If it's too high, insulin's going to crank and crank and crank, trying to push as much of the glucose into the cells to be used for fuel. It's a great burning fuel, but what it can't get in there, it's going to turn into um, your triglycerides, blood fats. The sugar, instead of being used for energy, gets turned into fat and stored for future use. So you're going to be storing energy in the form of fat. Now, you could look at fat people and say, boy, you sure have a lot of stored energy, but
Yeah, you could.
you know, the truth is, it's kind of true in a way, but you don't want to store too much. There should be enough stored in your tissues and in your liver, different areas. And in your that's what cortisol is for, by the way. It's gonna produce. It's gonna get some sugar, some energy, and some glucose basically out of your organs or tissues and things when you need it. especially the brain, it just thrives on that. When you're stressed out, you need good brain activity. So cortisol's there to work in concert with all these other things going on. And if you're just eating too much glucose for your, we call it metabolic type, some people can handle more.
Mhm.
Um, there's tribes in South America that live above 8,000 feet. They're called the Quechuans. They live on corn and potatoes. For us, that's way too much starch and basically glucose. That's how they're built. That's normal for them. So there's metabolic types. You have the my cousin Chris Davis, actually a priest up in Canada. He was a bad priest, so they punished him by sending him north. So his parish is two Cree Indian villages. Now, if they
Mhm.
ate nothing but corn and potatoes like those Quechuan Indians, they die, and actually they're dying. They're all going to the clinical. Why? Because they're eating basically white man's food. They're getting donuts and
Yeah.
spaghetti and fried chicken and stuff instead of eating their natural fish, all protein and fat. You know, the salmon and the caribou. They're still very abundant, but these people have been ruined. So what I'm trying to say is that this idea of insulin and insulin resistance depends on who the person is who you're talking about. But for us who are sort of more your protein types, um, when we eat too much carbs, it turns into fruit would be included in that, or just you're eating crap, candy, and all these sugar stuff. The insulin can only do so much to the cells to get it in there. The rest you're turning it into fat. That's why most people with diabetes border on obesity as well, because they're just storing so much of that energy as fat. So the cells get resistant. That was your question.
Mhm.
They just don't pay attention um, um, to the insulin anymore because they're burnt out. And that happens, by the way, a lot in the body. You have resistance to a lot of things. It's an imbalance. It's because you're screwing it up. You're living yourself into that problem. And so with insulin, that's pretty straightforward. And then you got the other issues you touched on, like appetite. And so there's a lot of hormones involved, the leptin and the ghrelin and things that control our appetite. They tell us when we're full. And it's weird. As a consumer advocate, you'll understand what would like these crappy food companies do? They find out ways to suppress appetite fulfillment. So
Mhm.
turn off the leptin and ghrelin so that you'll eat more. They want you eating bigger portions. They don't give a crap if you get diabetes or
That is
anything. They
diabolical.
just they want you to. It is diet. That's a great word for it, Bob. So I don't. I know I didn't go too deep into the insulin resistance like you asked, but just kind of explaining why. Who depends on the person and their genetics, their historical backgrounds and things. It's really fascinating work.
Yeah, I know just from you know, my wife and I have very different reactions to different foods.
Yeah,
I've been around her for 30 years, so I know every,
that's wonderful.
and she knows all my stuff, and she'll like, I can't eat that. This is what'll happen, and if she does, that's what happens. I'm jealous. You can eat that, and I can't because I,
Yeah,
So we're both kind of very aware, and as laymen, we study it in a sense. We pay attention to it,
yeah,
but it's just a funny thing. Like we kind of have two different diets in a way, with some crossover. Certainly
yeah.
vegetables and things like that, we can both do that. That's
Right.
all good. But she can't eat certain things that I can, and there's other things that I just don't even want to. I look at it and I go, ugh, I'm not doing that.
Our fridge is half full of stuff I wouldn't even touch. Like
Yeah, see, yeah, there you go. It's just
yeah, so yeah, I'm not for me. But that tells you we're two different metabolic types. There's reasons for that you have no control over. It's built into the bones. remember I said that you got two parents, four grandparents, eight great grandparents. You go back enough generations, and you'll find the people then were eating, and I'm talking about ancient. Um, so this we call it the metabolic type diet. It's what you were genetically programmed
Mhm.
to eat, and it's not that easy to sort out, but we found a way to explain it. And you start with your macronutrient ratios, protein, fat, and carbs. So people sort of instinctively know sometimes that they're a protein type. Oh, I got to have meat, man, or I got to have high protein. You can be vegetarian still and get lots of protein. I'm not, but it's possible. Some religious reason you want to be a vegetarian. Um, but there's a reason for that. Why are you a protein type? Which means you're also fat. You need fat. Protein and fat come together for the most part in like meat. So it's got you
Mhm.
want fat in your meat. So why is that? What is the genetic and biological reason that you're a protein type? It's mostly dependent upon what's called your oxidative rate, how fast your cells can burn fuel. And if they're really fast burners, and there's just people, we call them fast oxidizers. So like your Eskimos, like I was saying, they're such fast oxidizers, they have to burn the slowest burning fuel that they can get. That's why they eat a lot of fat and some protein. So they're pure fast. They're fast. If it was a radio dial, they'd be really fast oxidizers. So they have to have slow burning fuel. They're like a bonfire. So you got to
Mhm.
put big logs that will burn slowly on that. Now, if you give that person fast burning fuel like carbohydrates, you throw a piece of paper on a bonfire, what happens? It's gone. So they have
Mhm.
no energy, they have no sense of satiation, and they don't have even a sense of well-being. They're pretty miserable if they just take and they gain weight and they get diabetes. And so my cousin's parish, the Cree Indian villages, two of them, who are supposed to be eating trapped or caught food, maybe the occasional blueberry or something, mostly meat and fat. They're all in the hospital and in government clinics getting medication for
Mhm.
diabetes, obesity. They're suicidal. Their
Yeah.
reproductive rate has gone down. Their alcoholism is through the roof. Why? Because it's their, believe it or not, it's their diet. They got off of their native diet, and it's that important.
Yeah.
That's how you live yourself into the crappy conditions we find people in there. If you're a fast oxidizer, better eat slow burning fuel. And the opposite, so you got that radio dial, you might not be here. You might be here genetically. It's like your ancestors left you with this. And now you can adjust it up and down a little bit to see where you should be. If you know about it, if you know this idea that, man, I really need to control my macronutrient ratios. And there might be times you can throw in a little more high quality carbs, you're burning fuel a little
Mhm.
slower at certain times of the year or something, so there's all these cycles and things involved. But that is a fact. That's how we figure out what diet's right for a person. Oxidative rate, and you can measure it.
I also wonder about ancestral diets. Like my ancestors are from Eastern Europe, pretty much. It's Russia, Poland, those kind of areas. My wife on her father's side is the same, and then her mother has her mother was like Swedish origin.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an odd pairing. And my
Yeah.
mother too was Eastern Europe ancestry, and my father. So, that I would think would be kind of meat eating.
There's a guy named Weston Price, and he went around the world, basically trying to find villages where nothing had changed in millennia. So he went to the Bantu tribe in Africa, the tribe in New Zealand, tribes in even in the North American continent and South America and Europe and stuff. And he tried to find where people were still eating their original native diet. And man, he was a dentist. So he'd look at their teeth and he would see the ones eating their ancestral diet had good teeth, strong
Mhm.
structure in their face from nursing, and things like this. And then he studied how if the Western diet had been introduced, they're eating more crap, basically. Well, their teeth start getting all screwed up, and they don't suckle as long as infants, as tiny babies and stuff. And it was just really amazing. It's a great book, Weston A. Price. Um, and so that taught us in the health and wellness business a lot. There's lots of other guys, Francis Pottinger, anything by any of these guys, Melvin Page, and lots of others who did this work. So it's been known forever that there's laws of nature that when you adhere to them, you do okay, and when you don't, it's bad for you. Basically, things that happened during the Industrial Revolution really made people's health turn. And I mean, I could go into any area of it you want. I love the philosophy of it, the legal aspects, anything you want to talk about there. But basically, what do you tell Mrs. Smith? You got to test. You've got to test a metabolic typing test for the diet, and the rest comes out of our saliva, urine, blood, and stool. It's really quite remarkable. We try to make it simple. It's it's not, but you make it that way.
I love it. Well, I really
Is any of
appreciate.
this helpful, Bob?
It's all helpful. It's all stuff I could talk about this for hours. This is
Yeah.
what I'm interested in.
So with your own health and family, is there any trends you notice with the health? Does anyone have bad health, and how far off the wagon have they gotten? It's kind of, or did some weird thing happen to them?
I mean, I noticed it with my parents who weren't very aware of any of this stuff. There was some of the things you were talking about, which is like fibromyalgia, and there was some obesity on my dad's side. All of his siblings and himself struggled with
Yeah.
weight.
Yeah.
Um, uh, it's just nothing. Blessed not to have too many bad things. But you could see arthritis. Those seem to be lifestyle things. Certainly the fibromyalgia and arthritis, and also obesity. It's
Yeah.
and I remember when I was a kid. My dad got on diet pills for a while.
Oh, huh.
Through my aunt got on them, and my uncle, and they were all going to lose weight. And then my dad said, "I don't feel good. I'm just like." It was
Yeah.
amphetamines. It was like,
It
and he
was
got,
all speed. It was all speed back
yeah, and he
then.
got off of it, and he just he didn't do it. But but you wonder like what happens later in life if it's a slow process with a lot of people. They don't see huge big problems until later, and then when they're
Yeah.
older, certain things present themselves. My dad's case, and I don't really know enough about it, but I would suspect that he had Parkinson's, and I suspect some of that was, I don't know what they're finding out about it now, but it's not this thing that where you're attacked from the outside by a germ. It doesn't,
Yeah,
you
you're
know.
not getting infectious diseases, lifestyle stuff. And it's really interesting to me and funny that it doesn't have to show up as just you're gaining weight every 2 years. You're another 5 pounds, 10 pounds heavier until you're giant size.
Yeah.
And that stuff is pretty easy to recognize. What actually helped me get into this business was thinking of the guy we went to high school with. I'll tell you his name later, but I was close to his dad, and his dad dropped dead of nothing. That's what they told him. He was perfectly healthy, but he dropped dead. Well, so he dropped dead from nothing. Is that what you're telling me? Like, that's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
They say that's kind of a joke. Like, they feel sorry for the vegans and health nuts because they end up in the hospital dying of nothing. And so, anyway, this guy drops dead who was perfectly healthy. bullshit. Something was really wrong. He wasn't overweight. He, the only thing you could observe, maybe he drank a little too much, but that was accepted back then. Have to have a cocktail every night. But that's more fascinating to me. And what helped me consider getting into this business was I didn't want anything sneaking up on me,
Hmm.
and anything wrong with me to this day, that's it's usually injuries. Oh yeah, I I did kickboxing so long I tore the labrum in my right hip, and now I need a new hip. I got it, so I have a good excuse for needing a new hip.
Yeah.
But the other stuff is all it's stuff that creeps up on you. Like you were mentioning with your parents, your dad, his family, at least with the obesity, their genetic type was very fast oxidizer, likely. They weren't eating that diet. So they did get they're eating wrong for their type. It just makes so much sense.
Hmm.
Their genetic type came from certain people who needed to eat differently. I mean, it's okay to have a little bit of the carbs, but you just can't make that your daily routine. The percentage has to be right, or you will pay the piper. You will pay for it.
You know what? I remember going to my uncle, who was the fattest of the three siblings. I went over to his house one time. We were sitting at the kitchen table. I couldn't, even I was like shocked by this. He had a loaf of white bread and a stick of butter, and he ate the whole thing, one slice after the next.
Yeah, man.
I was like, and I went home and I got this. I just told I go, this is crazy. What I watched, my uncle, do this,
Yeah.
and he was so obese for so long,
But
and
was he was happy doing it though, right?
he
Which
was
which
addicted to it. He loved it.
which tells you that his brain knows something's wrong and he's producing these
Yeah.
endorphins. With the wheat, it's gliadorphin, and with the butter, although butyrate's really good for you, sort of the term butter comes from. It's still a dairy product, and he's producing this casomorphin, and or something like it, so that it was numbing.
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
mean, we have a friend we went to high school with, I think was addicted to pretzels and 7 Up.
Yeah. It's a
The
good
big
combo.
one. He was a big fella,
Yeah.
and yeah, he was the first one to go of all of our buddies from high school. It's amazing. Um,
Did his nickname start with a W?
yeah, what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Poor, poor guy, but
Well,
man, this the addiction is really
yeah.
part of the problem there. So lifestyle, it tells you lifestyle is pretty much everything.
Well,
Um,
let's I am at my hour limit here, a little over. I wish I could
yeah,
do
we're
this another
past that, man.
3 hours, but maybe we'll do another one on some other topics because there's just so much to talk about. If you're up
It's
for it,
fantastic to see you, man.
you
I
too.
had to tell you that I saw the name Bob Nickman because I don't do my own scheduling. I wasn't sure if it was you or not until
Oh
I
yeah.
saw you. Yeah.
Well,
So
we're everywhere. There's a ton of us.
yeah, there's more than one Bob Nickman.
Yeah, I don't think there
So
is. Yeah.
well, yeah, man, I'm really happy to see you and to have a conversation
Yeah.
about health. And I think what people can do about it is the most important thing. So the more awareness you're bringing to um, self self care, the better.
And
Self care is
yeah.
where it's at.
And
And
personal
there's
responsibility. You can
yeah,
take your power and with a little bit of mindfulness and a little bit of research, you can really do a lot for yourself and
yeah,
maybe not rely on experts, all the
yes,
time for, I use the word with quotes around it because
yeah,
there's nothing more
yeah,
dangerous than an expert.
yeah. I very rarely call myself that.
Yeah.
Other people do, but I avoid the term.
Well, not, it's, the problem with being an expert is you sort of you can shut out other possibilities, and that's always a question to ask: is what else can it be? What else? What am I maybe missing? What else is out there?
Yes.
And
Well, we remain open, and at the same time, we try to share things that I have discovered by like personal experience. That's what I want to hear. And it doesn't mean it applies to everybody
right.
if I only did it on myself. But I actually have worked with thousands of people, and now I've trained thousands of practitioners. Um, there's probably out of 5,000 people, 1,500, maybe 2,000 actually do this for a living.
Mm,
But it's a way to help others and
yeah.
get paid, and it's worked
Well,
for
that's the
me and my
perfect
gang.
segue into how do people find out more.
Yeah, functional diagnostic nutrition .com or FDN training. FDNtraining.com is a great place to go.
There you go, folks. You heard it straight from Reed Davis.
Hey, thanks, Bob Nickman.
Much appreciation for you folks listening to The Exploding Human. The website is theexplodinghuman.com. You can also listen on YouTube. That is The Exploding Human with Bob Nickman. Once again, I want to thank Reed Davis for being on the show. You can find out more at fdn.com. Thank you.